What's going on, everybody? Today is November 2nd. It's Thursday, and you are watching and listening to the Daily AI Show live. And it looks like, well, coming in the door, yep, we got Carl here. So well-timed, Carl. And so, yeah, we got Jimmy, Aaron, Carl, Andy, and I'm Brian. Today we are talking about the AI gap, why some are all in and others are indifferent. So some of the things we put in the show notes to get this thing kicked off is like, look, there's companies that are all in on AI. From the top down, they're leveraging AI. They're trying to figure out every single place, every single task, from customer service to data analytics. Then there's other companies that might have one or two, end users who are super into AI, but they cannot get any traction within their company. The leadership does not seem to, sort of frozen in time, doesn't want to move forward. And there might be some really good implications of why that's the case. So today is really just about understanding that gap. Why are some people, some companies all in, and why do some seem to be indifferent? So I'm not sure who wants to kind of kick off this conversation, but that's what we got for today. Yeah, go for it, Aaron.
I'll jump in. So Brian and I were briefly talking offline, but I see this probably fairly largely as an issue to do with the, and I don't know any of our listeners and viewers would have heard of this, but what I call the bell curve of technology adoption, which we've probably all seen at some stage. We all know what a bell curve is. And it basically talks about as new tech is introduced, you've got people right at one end of the bell curve or on the bleeding edge, like they'll just jump in head first and go hammer and tongs at things. And you've got the bulk of people in the middle that get there eventually, and then you have the laggards at the end that have to be dragged kicking and screaming 2 or 3 years later after everybody else is doing it as per normal, that won't do it. So I think that's a big part of it. Once a month I have a business support group that I'm a part of, where we get together once a month and talk about our businesses and how we can improve things. And they're all sharp people, are all reasonably technical minded, but none of them are using, except for me, are using AI. And it's really interesting to see that, because I can see opportunities there. I don't know if it's because they haven't been introduced to it, or they just haven't had the time to play with it, or what. I'm not sure yet, but I do think that bell curve of tech adoption is a bigger component here.
So I have a quick follow-up question to that, because I'm just curious what you guys think. Like, we're not all the same age, right? I don't know what the average age is for everybody on this show. But also I sort of find with AI that I don't see it necessarily adhering to the younger generation. You're just out of college, 20-year-olds, more than 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever, 70-year-olds. I don't know. It's like, I don't really see a segmentation by generation really when it comes to AI adoption. I'm just curious, because a lot of times with tech adoption, that sometimes is a leading factor, is like, well, I've just never had to use this before. But I talk to just as many people who are in their 50s as they do in their 20s that are either all in or all out. And it doesn't seem to be much difference. Sometimes they're completely, oblivious to what's going on in AI. And sometimes they're as zoned in as I am at 45, So I'm just curious, do you guys see that as well? Or is it the opposite for you guys?
I do. I see it, especially in business, when we're going to discovery call presentations or just meeting. It's one of those few that those who adopt or those who don't use it frequently or don't use it at all, I don't see an age like, oh, Gen whatever is either using it, right? So like, I've always because we've always been marketed towards like Gen Z, millennials. Like, I'm a millennial. Gen Z, like my brother's in Gen Z, but I just even look at my family. My two brothers, one is like a millennial and the other one is Gen Z, and both of them aren't like AI driven, or they don't use AI on a regular basis. They use it infrequently, just like hey, chat GPT, I'm gonna maybe write an email or thing, but it's not like that. And that's what I'm finding, is that I think the pace of this, of how it's evolving and the things that you need to do to apply it regularly I think that blows that kind of maybe dynamic out, because it to me it doesn't matter. And the people, like if you look at the students that are coming up, the focus is on, hey, how do I cheat, or how do I write this paper for me? It's not like, hey, how do I actually use it to, like, you know, to make the max use out of it. And then
So
not everybody.
Sorry, Carl, I was just going to ask you, your two brothers, would you say, number one, are they what I would call maybe sort of tech savvy and or tech positive? And B, do you see that there's a real strong use case of them getting to play and use this stuff, or is it more something that might not be as immediately valuable to them? Because I think that might drive some of it.
And it could be too, because so one brother works for a bank, the other one is like freelancing. So, and you'd think that, you know, the advantages to the tools can help you do stuff, and yeah, they use it. But when we talk about frequency of usage, like all of us, we use it regularly enough that we are upgrading our skills with it, right? And then when something new comes out, you upgrade your skill. So like even something simple as ChatGPT, okay, now it has advanced data analysis, then it has DALL-E 3, then it has plugins, then it has like, then it can browse the web. But now it can do all those things all at once. You don't even have to do those three. So we've upgraded. No, like eventually everyone's going to get that. Yeah, but I mean, like we've all upgraded our skills point by point by point by point just by using it and testing it out. But think about all those people who just use regular 3.5. Like that to me is the gap. It's like as we use more and we learn more, we take part in 12 days of prompting, 30 days of prompting, automations, whatever it is. And the people who are still using 3.5 as is, and they just keep using it. And maybe they get a bunch, maybe they buy a prompt pack, maybe they pick up a couple prompting things, but we all know that's not how you level up. So you have a whole bunch of people who are just continuously leveling up. Those people aren't, but the technology is changing so fast that the people who aren't leveling up don't know what's coming. We know what's coming. Then you level up some more. And then now you have that gap. And now we can take advantage of something that's like ridiculous while people are like, hey, how do I prompt to get this? So I think that's like, that to me is a very dangerous widening. And that's where I was like, that's a pretty big issue, because I'm sure we all talk to regular people, the ones who aren't like in AI every day, and be like, hey, have you used this? Yeah, I can do it. I didn't know it could do this. Like today, Midjourney, Tuner, that's amazing. Like you can do all this stuff. I guarantee 75% of the people we know, like, I don't know what that is. But that's so important because now you can take an image and tune that, like, right? We can understand the benefits as we keep going. But I think that to me, that is a dangerous gap to keep growing as it grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. And I was like, where's the education to those people? Because I don't think as a society will benefit. AI will not get the benefit when not everyone's using it. There's just a select few, which then is the danger, who are the privileged people who can use it and those who don't.
So do you see the problem as being that it's the education that's the gap? Like I think we all use it daily, and that's why we're pretty good at it, because I don't know about you guys, but I dove in because I was fascinated with it and I was willing to spend time practicing and learning and experimenting. Some people may not have the desire and or the time to do that. So do you think the gap is the education, Carl?
I believe so. And I really believe the pace of, so you've got all the major tech companies in an arms race. Then you've got all these smaller companies trying to get the Scrooge McDuck bank flow of cash to, if you mention AI in whatever you're doing, here's some money. And everyone's taking advantage of that. So you get that. But then all these tools cannibalize each other in what, like a couple months? It's like, oh, that one, now it's this one, or a big feature comes out and wipes out a bunch of those wrappers. So, but there's not an actual education on, yes, there's ways to use the tool, but can you actually use it in like a business setting? Like, could you do it that is like, hey, can a business actually, is it reliable? Is it scalable? Like, here's a very simple example. Our company did a pilot on Duet. Okay, was there actual instructions or education from Google or from anybody on how to use Duet? There's like YouTube videos that are slick, but I was like, hey, how do you actually use this? And then it's just people fumbling their way around Duet. So now then the thought would be, oh, well, Duet isn't going to work, so that doesn't work. I'm like, no. I believe Duet isn't great, but it still has its uses. But do you see? It's like, okay, Duet, Copilot, just, the news is about Copilot. Then the news will be about Gemini. Then the news will be GPT-5. Then the news will be something else. And we're just consuming it and upgrading our skills. All these other people are like, I don't know what that is. It's too much for me to keep up. I can't. I'm having trouble with 3.5. What am I going to do?
So, Andy, I'd be curious to bring your perspective into this. As like, I don't know, I always call it kind of think of you as our resident, CXO from your past experience and what you did at FitAid and LifeAid and things like that. But as somebody, and if you put that hat on, where do you see some of the holdups when it comes to the executive board? Is it truly things like data security and privacy, which are very real concerns? Is it ethics? Is it our D&I? Is it it's moving so fast, it wouldn't be in our best interest to invest in any one space, because we might lose our hat in the deal, or end up spending a lot of money, time, and investment for something that doesn't pan out. Just kind of curious to get your thoughts on this.
Well, there's two dimensions of resistance. One is resource constraints. Investing in AI requires human resources. You've got to have some spare capital human resource. And you also have some money investment that you have to make a decision about. And the CXO is always making resource allocation decisions. So the risks, so there's resource constraints, and then there's risk concerns. And you mentioned a couple, Brian. I'll say one of the risks is, especially in this really flux-driven market, like all these things happening so quickly, we're still within a year of the release of this kind of technology to the broader awareness. Now, setting aside the fact that AI has been incorporated in lots of different business processes for a long time. It's not something brand new to larger enterprise, but the risks don't seem that great this early on. Insofar as, I struggle to find an example of a competitive market space where, there's already a breakout, in the market share leadership that's driving, a lot of other competitors say, oh my gosh, we've got to get on this train. That takes a while. We've talked about that before about, how do you actually insert, where do you get the impetus to actually make change within your organization, within your business processes, and so on? And right now, the tools are really quite capable, but they do require a lot of other things, including automations, in order to make them reliable and practical in day-to-day operations. So you're not really missing out this early on, so you can wait, and that may actually pay off, because one of the risks that you have to face as a CXO is, did I pick the wrong horse? Like, I just didn't do it right, and now I've got to go back and start over, or shift. Making a systems change is a really complex thing in a business that's got a lot of different interconnecting processes. If you implement that in a system or platform that's not going to be the winner, that's a big risk. So you've got those kinds of things that are causing people to wait, and it may not be the wrong decision. It could be that's the right decision. One of the other major risks is regulatory. Like there's a lot of questions swirling around it. There's a lot of risks associated with, okay, exposure of my data. What's going to happen if that, it ends up being a major risk for my company? And so I see that as all being kind of the wisdom of the CXO is, how do I invest now and at the same time not waste that investment? And the other thing I'll mention is that the leaders in a given marketplace have lots more resources. They have profit surpluses that exceed those of the players who are really trying to maintain a market position, a share position that can actually be sustainable. And so the leaders have the capital and the human resources to make a change with AI. And so it may be very well that AI as a new technology accelerant in the world of the competitive landscapes of various industries actually advantages the leaders more than the market leaders, rather than the people who are struggling to get to a level of share. On the other hand, AI may actually enable some really nimble teams that don't have a large market share now to break out. But I'm not seeing that yet. I'm not seeing dramatic breakouts in existing industries.
I would have thought it, honestly, if you had asked me, I would have said, I would have thought it's it was the latter, that we are seeing more nimble, smaller teams move faster because maybe they can replicate the work of 2 people on a small team to now 10 or 5 or whatever the case may be, or a team of 25 to act more like a team of 50, and that gives them a competitive advantage. So that's interesting, because I would have thought the opposite of that.
Yeah, I kind of think that when you have a small team and you're resource constrained, like imagine a startup that's really got a limited runway and a very limited amount of money to actually get to their next milestone, the waypoints for raising additional funds. They don't really. Everybody's wearing lots of different hats, and they don't have somebody who can step back and do as we have, with support from whatever networks we've got, to invest all the time and energy and intellectual capital that we have to understand how to do this. And I'm not even at the point now where I can say definitively, you should go and do this rather than that, because I'm still learning. It's taking time.
Well, I'm going to push back a little bit on that last point, Andy. I think those that are getting into early startups now, or in the last year or so, they're uniquely positioned to put on that extra hat because they're already doing that kind of work, right? They're already trying to learn about how businesses run, what they're gonna need to set up the startup, what their role is gonna be, things like that. Sure, a startup maybe a couple years down the line, I agree. But if you're 12 months in, this is the perfect opportunity to just wear one more hat, because you're already wearing so many. And if this one hat is going to, touch all the different aspects that you're already working on, it's a huge advantage. In the terms of the gap, it's recognizing, yes, you need to do this. You need to upskill, like Carl said. And I think Aaron's absolutely right on the bell curve. As adoption goes, we're not even heading up, really, right? We're at the very, very edge of that. So our early adopters are the really early adopters. That's us. That's where we're at. Only once we head up that hill, trying to get that first section, of the bell, that's where we know adoption is taking place. And then it becomes the push to get all of those people who are entrenched in their own methodologies and their own systems to accept it. And I think that's where it really speaks to what you're talking about, Andy, in being able to shift or adapt and spend those resources. But I think those very, very early startups, I'd say this is their opportunity, since they're going to wear all those hats anyways. This is just one more that they should invest in.
I see that at the individual contributor level. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you're a member of a small team, if you're not using AI personally, but that's the limit of my advice is everyone ought to be investing in personal familiarization with the tools, because the tools are incredible. And we've demonstrated that, I think, all of us, to our cohort, whatever that is. And that's where we are at this point. But in terms of, everybody's got to have this particular provision from this service provider, as a baseline, we haven't quite arrived there yet.
Yeah, I completely agree on that point. Yeah.
I wanted to sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Carl. Sorry.
Well, I wanted to give an example of two companies. One company that I work for, very, very progressive. Progressive as in like CEO is like, yeah, everyone should be using AI. I use AI, like, that kind of stuff. And the tools are available. We have a AI operating principles, things like that. But even there's still a lot of people who don't use it regularly. And essentially we have to internally set up over the next 6 weeks, we are doing a learning modules every week to teach people the basics, all the stuff that we know in and out. We have to do that because there isn't like a formal mechanism. We have to do it. Now take that, and the policies there is like, hey, we want you to use AI tools. We want you to experiment. We've done science fairs. We like there's an overt push to get people involved. And even then it's really tough to get everyone to use it in their daily environment. Cross that with another company. This one's more traditional, bigger, thousands of employees. So I implemented an AI system, whatever that was, with that company. Their CTO said the moment they found out, and I don't know how we put it under the radar for so long, the moment their CTO was like, no. Like, they're coming out with an AI policy, but the reaction was, hey, it's not one of trying. It's one of, no, we will, I think the word was, we'll do this as a company, or whatever that is. But I believe the thinking around that is more of, we're going to think of this as just like any other technology. We're going to roll it out from the headquarters onwards. But I'm like, you can't really do that, because the way that this is moving, like Andy, we all know how long an enterprise takes to roll out tools and all that kind of stuff. It takes forever. By the time they actually roll it out, guess what? There'll be like a whole bunch of things that have happened that make that thing, whatever is rolled out, obsolete. So it's like, hey, do you recognize that? Do you understand like that you can't do your normal IT tech rollout? It doesn't, you have to completely change that paradigm, because all the small nimble companies that aren't as big as you, that don't need all that, those procedures and tape, they're just going to start implementing, and you're going to be left behind in the market pretty quick. So tale of two different organizations, but regardless, there is no formal education. We will go all the way back to that gap. There's no formal education between the two. So no matter how progressive or how traditional, there still needs to be, hey, this is how you use it. This is like all the things that we spend hours upon hours upon. Not everyone's going to spend that many hours, right? So back to the point, how do we help everyone move in that direction?
Yeah, I think it's like, I look at when I started learning Midjourney, for example, I must have created hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of images, just screwing around, trying different things, exploring. You can't bypass a lot of that experience. And that's really difficult. I mean, I come from an IT background, so I know that they're pretty anal about not just letting things go crazy in the IT side of things. but it's not something you can just drop a whole company in and say, there you go, guys, there's the tool, go use it. You know, they don't know what they don't know. And unfortunately, I think the only solution really is you have to start using it now, even if it's just at a low level, and let people experiment, because until they get that aha moment about what AI could do for them, they're never going to sort of push ahead with it. So it's a challenge. I mean, I look at it as a marketer, you'd be dumb not to use ChatGPT and Midjourney. You could do so much with that just from a marketing perspective, and yet there are heaps of marketing agencies and marketing consultants out there who still don't use it. So
I want to pull up Camilla's comment, which she just put on here. So I'm assuming it's what you were just saying, Aaron and Carl. But a good point. This is totally new paradigm because technology is changing so fast. It's going to have to be fast and iterative, and that's kind of where. Thanks, Camilla, by the way, for the comment. That's where my brain was sort of going with this too. Is like as we sort of wrap up this conversation in the next 4 or 5 minutes. You know, what can a company do? You know, you're going to have companies like Carl was saying, like the CTO, who's going to shut it down. You know, that is going to happen. I've seen that happen to very similar situations where it's been like, nope, nothing, nada, and we're not even going to discuss it, which is ridiculous to me. But what I would rather see, what I would hope more companies would do is, okay, you can't necessarily maybe allocate time and resources to it, but you could start talking to the end users in multiple different departments within a large company and just simply start asking, how are you using these AI tools today? Because more than likely, there's several people who have spent on their own time in the evenings learning Midjourneys or learning ChatGPTs or whatever, because they're that interested in it. And in most companies, I know Scaled would be, you know, I would be one of the people at Scaled, but I'm not the only one. Who took an early interest into some of these AI tools. And it sort of languished for a little bit until there was starting to be conversations from the top down of, well, hold on, who's using this? And what are you using it for? And what does that help you do? And then that collective sharing of knowledge really helped elevate us. But I've also seen this work with a lot of other companies as well. So I don't know, it's not a key takeaway or a TLDR. It's more of a, like, if I was working within a company, I think my first step, if I was hesitant to make any step, would be, hey, if I'm a CXO, so if I'm at that level, hey, directors, managers, whatever, I want you to go out to your teams and I want you to start asking who's currently using these tools. Not because we're trying to get anybody in trouble, because we're genuinely trying to help or trying to understand how these are being used in business right now, so that we can perhaps put a system around that or elevate that in some way or whatever the case may be. So that's just sort of my takeaway on it. But, you know, I don't know what you guys think.
Do you see with that, Brian, do you see a problem if the man or the woman at the top is not using and familiar with this stuff? Do you see that being a problem? Like if they don't have some kind of concept of it, beyond just saying who's using it, what are you doing with it, they might miss the big picture. I don't know. Do you see that as an issue?
I mean, possibly. You'd like to think, though, that there's, you know, whoever's at the top has surrounded themselves with people where they don't feel like they have to be the smartest person in the room. And so, you know, I would hope that there's conversations going on all over the world where somebody says, look, I have not personally done anything with this, but director, manager, VP, whatever, if you're saying this is something we need to be focusing on, then go forth and do that and report back to me what you found out, and then allow that VP to go to the directors and the managers and the end users and then come back 3 weeks later and say, hey boss, this is what we found out. This is what we know. This is what we think it's doing. And then, you know, that's in more of a executive report, executive dashboard type setting. I don't think every top of the line, you know, whatever leader needs to necessarily be using it if they are entrusting their team to go find the resources or get the data or whatever the case may be.
And one thing too is, even though we let's say we allow people to have, you know, experiment with it, there's still an education component, because, like, again, we spend hours upon hours. We've taken a whole bunch of courses, and like, just some people aren't interested in doing that. They just aren't, like, I just want to play with it. If it works, it works. And we've all been Google trained. So it's like, oh, if I don't get the answer I'm getting in how you apply my Google skills to ChatGPT, then it doesn't work. Or I'm still using 3.5, so I don't see what the big deal is. But we all know it's like, oh my gosh, if you use 4, it's just that much better. But all these little nuances you won't know, and most people won't care until like it's like, you remember all those news stories, hey, it's going to impact your job kind of deal. Well, I feel unless there's actually something that is encouraging people to do it other than your own intuition or your own interest, I'm not sure you're going to get that wide of adoption unless there's something pushing people to do it. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's a negative event, if it's a stick, if it's a carrot. I don't know. But I feel like unless someone's pushing people to do it, you won't get that vote like that. We'll still be stuck here for all us people who are consuming all this stuff. I don't know what you all think.
I think I agree. You do need a motivator. I would like to imagine that motivator we'll see is clear data in the next year that says these companies that adopted early are seeing higher returns in whatever metric. It could be in the camp of all of their employees love working for them because they only need to do a quarter of the work. Or it could be the other side where they can get 4 times the work done. Either path, as soon as people come out with that credible report or survey, I think that's going to be a big motivating factor. Now, like you said, it could be a negative one, but I'm a little more optimistic.
I'll say that we're still at the phase where CXOs should be encouraging AI literacy, especially in the leadership, and set an example for knowledge and understanding of how these tools work for you as an individual contributor. And you should, I think, if you have the resources, try to develop an internal proof of concept for some level of AI-powered automation in order to achieve some of the productivity efficiencies that are available using such automations. But that requires, as we all know, a lot of time and attention. So you need to have somebody who's going to lead the charge on that.
Yeah. Or consulting. Consulting is a good idea too.
We're all on that path.
just an idea. Just throwing it out there.
And so, Aaron, Brian, your next thing should have been, hey, if you like, hire now, you get a 15% off, whatever, and then like, you also get this. You missed your chance to do that final promo.
Find that promo code.
I was ready with the banner. If I'd just been ready, 555, act now. Aaron, I don't know if we got your final thought on this. Do you have a final thought on it?
Look, I think at the end of the day, the only way this is going to move forward within companies is either, number one, somebody at the top gets excited about it or gets serious about it and drives it from the top, or number two, big, small, medium companies start to lose business to small, scrappy little 1, 2, and 3 man or woman teams using AI to bypass them, and they go, holy moly, I'm about to get my lunch eaten by some 3-person company and ChatGPT. I need to pull my finger out of my posterior and do something about it. So if you're not interested, at least consider the fact that you may go out of business if you don't get serious about this.
I think that's great. And I'm actually going to give the last thought here to Camilla because she was nice enough to send another comment in. I'll read it real quick and then we'll wrap things up. But Camilla said, start with a process that are repetitive and soul crushing, she put in parentheses, to determine which tasks qualify for automation, and listen, in capital letters, to the staff who are actually using the tools. Leadership needs to listen and learn themselves along with the beginners. I'm also targeting C-suite to educate. Yes, I agree with what you're saying. Thank you, Camilla. Really appreciate it. This is a great conversation. And I think that, this is a conversation we're probably going to continue to have over and over again on this show, is just talking and identifying the skill gap, and not skill gap, but like the AI gap, if you will, and how businesses can, number one, identify it. Number two, think about AI literacy, as Andy was saying. And number three, start to implement these things at their own business. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about an automation tool called Respell. You might have heard of Zapier and you may have heard of Make, but you may not have heard of Respell. So we are going to talk about that automation tool tomorrow and sort of showcase some of the things that some of us have been internally building in there, why we like it, why it's visually appealing, all those kind of things. So if you're interested in automation, if you're interested in maybe learning about a new tool on the market, then hang back with us tomorrow. Come back with us tomorrow on Friday as we talk about Respell. All right, that's it. Thanks, everybody. And we will see you on Friday. Let me find my banners. Here we go.
Wow.